start or a full start?
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Wheel. We're at the National Motor Museum. I'm Mick, I'm one of the curators here. We're just standing behind the museum. That's our load bay and wash bay. And this that I'm standing with, this beautiful machine, is a 1926 Chrysler 60 Series. It's a tourer body, beautiful maroon, and it's so hot off the press as an acquisition for the National Motor Museum. We haven't even given it a wash yet or a clean. It's a bit dusty. We've only just received it. This was donated just recently by a chap called Vinnie Barry, Vinnie restored the car. It was purchased brand new by his grandparents, all the way back in 1926. So pretty special family history, I guess, for it. But firstly, let's talk a little bit about the Chrysler. So Chrysler's a fairly well-known name, prominent manufacturer for almost the last 100 years. But this is one of the very first Chryslers, really. The Chrysler company sort of appeared in around 1924. Originally, they were cars called Maxwells, which were later rebadged as Chryslers. And this series came about in 1926, so only 2 years after the company really started. They came onto the scene with a bang. So this vehicle, for example, has an excellent six-cylinder motor, which Nigel will tell you a little bit about. It's got four-wheel hydraulic brakes, a removable oil filter. It had a lot of features and accessories that meant as a mid-range car, it was very, very popular. It's kind of like buying a Mazda nowadays. You know, it was nothing too flashy, but at the same time, you knew you were getting a well-built, solid car. Now, obviously, this is an American vehicle, but the way that cars were purchased and consumed in Australia in the 1920s was pretty different to how we do it nowadays. So there were some government policies that played a part in this, but basically most vehicles that came out of the United States or Europe, remembering Australia didn't have a fully fledged motor industry at this time, came as chassis with a drivetrain, but the body was fitted locally. Chrysler, in fact, what became the Australian branch of Chrysler, actually is an evolution of what was one of the more important Australian motor bodybuilders. It was a company called TJ Richards, which started right here in Adelaide. But for example, Holden Motor Bodybuilders had a very similar progression into fully fledged automotive production. So this would have come as an import from the United States, and then we don't actually know for sure who built this body. Unfortunately, Vinnie's not in very good health these days, and I'm not sure if he even knows who built it, but we do think it probably is a TJ Richards body. It definitely has some very similar features. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Vinnie's grandparents purchased this car brand new in 1926. They were farmers from regional South Australia, and Vinnie himself, later in life, I think by chance, happened to find this car sitting abandoned and incomplete on a farm near Blyth, which is in the mid-north of South Australia, and he lovingly restored it. As I said, incomplete things like this radiator, for example, was missing, and it's not easy to find one, so he hand-built it himself. So he obviously loved and treasured this vehicle a lot, and now that he's not in very good health, he wanted people to be able to love and treasure it as much as he has. So we have some pretty special plans for this vehicle. It came to us in running condition, or so we hope, and we would like people to be able to experience what it's like to drive a 1926 vehicle. So we do hope one day to be able to instate a drive experience here at the National Motor Museum. But for that to happen, we first need to check that we can experience driving it ourselves. So let's go have a look under the bonnet with Nigel, see what condition the vehicle's in, and see if we can get it to start. How you doing, Nigel?
Good, Mick. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Now, nice simple engine bay, that's how you like them?
Oh, more simpler the better. Works for me. So, not a lot of electronics in here, I can tell you. So, straight 6, 3 litre. Be quite powerful in this thing, I reckon. So, as you said before, we've only just got it, so we've actually got to go through and have a look, see what she's actually, where she's sort of sitting. So I have noticed a few things. We've got a little bit of a water leak at the front. No fuel delivery at the moment, so we're going to have to fill the vacuum tank, and we're going to have to sort out why it hasn't got any brakes. So even if we could get it going, we're going to have a little bit of trouble stopping, I think. So
you're not enormously hopeful we're going to be driving it today, then, I take it?
No, well, it's all about conservation. We've got to make sure we do it right before we get out there and have a go at it. So we want to be safe. We also don't want to make any mistakes and damage the car in any way. So
I reckon let's have a look behind the wheel anyway, and talk through how it could work. It'll never ever cease to amaze me how they could build cars as big as they wanted, but it's always a squeeze to get in as the driver.
I don't know what it is. I think it must be that every generation gets bigger, but the hole just keeps on getting smaller for some reason or another, but we're
Well,
in and we made it. So
I'm happy to report as a passenger, plenty of leg room. It's actually quite comfortable. It's nice inside. I think Vinny reupholstered these seats himself,
Yes.
But it is very nice inside the Chrysler, and obviously it's simple. Nigel, if we were to start it, and I think we've given up by now, and it's not going to happen, but what are the controls here?
So we've basically got the ignition switch, it actually turns that way, and when the ignition's on, we can pull the choke up, and down here on the floor there's actually a starter button. So you actually press that and the starter motor will go. And on the steering you've got an accelerator, so you can try and work the accelerator up on the steering, and a little bit of advance and retard on the distributor. So when you're trying to start her, you probably have her on the retard, and then once you're running, you'd sort of advance her up a little bit and get her running sweet. So 3-speed manual, 1 reverse gear, and pedals on the floor, a little bit different to what they are today. In the middle you have your accelerator, on the outside, on your right hand side, you've got your brake, and the clutch is still where they normally are today, so on the left hand pedal. So that's pretty well much all there is to it. Not an awful lot.
Yeah, well, look, this car is almost 100 years old, and I think it's an absolutely ideal candidate for people to be trying their first ever experience at a car like this. It's a very classic vintage vehicle, and you know, I think once we get her running, she'll be pretty reliable.
I think she will, judging by the way that he's done the restoration, or Vinny's done the restoration, and the love that he's obviously put into it. I think once she's going, I think she'll actually be a very nice vehicle to drive on the road, and as you said, it'll be a very good experience for people to learn how to do it from bygone eras.
I'm gonna let you get to your troubleshooting, and let's tune in next week, I reckon. My money's on you getting it running by next week.
I'm glad you got the faith. I'll give it my best shot if I can get out of the car. Now I'm in, it's a bit different getting out again, so but we'll see how we go.
Hope you guys have enjoyed watching. This has been 1926 Chrysler 60 Series Tourer.